49ers have just wrapped up their third preseason game against the Las Vegas Raiders with a tie, 24-24. And a lot of good happened, a lot of not so good happened, and some, honestly, breathtakers that happened during the game. Let's start off with some of those breathtakers. Leonard Floyd and Yetur Gross-Matos both went down within a 3-play window on the exact same series, both listed as having that hyperextended knee. And honestly, it just is a bit scary as a 49er fan. Kyle Shanahan said afterward, it did not feel good. It was almost a punch to the gut because as soon as you see them both go down, they both grabbed at the knee. Typically, that means an ACL, MCL injury. Something is not right. But luckily, they're both listed as hyperextended knees. In fact, during the game, you saw Leonard Floyd come alongside the sideline with his teammates. You saw him later on laughing with Kyle Shanahan. Typically, if there's an ACL injury, you don't see that happen. You keep them off the field for safety. And initial takes were from the doctors that it did not seem like an ACL injury. It just seems like a hyperextended knee, which best case scenario, you're going to go ahead and slowly ease him into where he'll be ready for week 1 against the Jets. Yetur Gross-Matos, it seems like the same thing, but we're still waiting to hear confirmation. They're both slated to have an MRI on those knees just to see if we avoided any major injuries, because you can't afford any major injuries that could potentially lead to the season being over before it even begins. And so the 49ers, just think about it. They've had back-to-back-to-back very long seasons. And with those back-to-back-to-back very long seasons, it begins to wear on the body. You can't constantly expect for everything to go right. You need some luck in order to make it deep in the playoffs. You need to make sure that you're relatively healthy. Things don't go as well for other teams. The ball needs to bounce your way. There's a lot of things to keep in mind when it comes to that. Now let's talk about some good. Brock Purdy had some of his weapons back this game. Now, Christian McCaffrey didn't play, Trent Williams didn't play, Jawan Jennings didn't play, but you know who did play? George Kittle and Deebo Samuel were both in the game. Two of Brock Purdy's, some of his major playmakers were present there during the game, but also Jordan Mason started at running back and played the way he's been playing, the way we know he knows how to play. It's probably one of the 49ers' best kept secrets, and I can expect him to have a big year as you kind of take off some of the load off of Christian McCaffrey, keep him healthy, hopefully for a deep playoff run. And so it was great to see what happened. If you look back, the very first drop back was to Deebo Samuel out on the outside one-on-one to where only Deebo can get to it, and he made a great contested catch, which is something that honestly a lot of beat writers were writing that, you know what, Deebo can't be one-on-one coverage. He can't do that. And then what else did we see? We saw Brock Purdy throw an interception. Now, some writers were saying, oh, Brock Purdy just narrowed in on his one receiver. Oh, you know, Deebo can't break one-on-one coverage. The problem is, if you actually analyze the play, Colton McKivitz was beat off the ball. And as many people have been saying, Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, you need to address that offensive line, specifically that right side. Luckily, you drafted Dominic Pooney, who can hold down that right guard, but you still need to do something about that right tackle position. Colton McKivitz just so happened to get beat on the regular, almost like that's his job, when somebody needs to tell him, you need to protect the quarterback, because less than a second after the snap, defensive end's already in the backfield, and that wasn't even Max Crosby for the Raiders. That was one of the backups that were in Brock Purdy's face. So what did Brock Purdy have to do? He has to throw to the first option on that route tree. Now, if you know football at all, you have your different progressions that you go through. Deebo Samuel was number one on that specific play. So guess what? If you have a defender in the backfield right when you get the ball, you need to either go to your hot route, which is usually number one, or later on option 4, or you got to get rid of the ball. Now, there's an argument to be made that he probably should have just taken the sack, fall down, live to fight another day. That's totally acceptable. But for those to say that he narrowed in on Deebo, don't know what they're talking about. Why? Because you have to throw the first option when the defender's in the backfield. You don't have time to go to your other progressions because that could be a sack fumble. That could be anything else. Now, again, the one argument you have is Purdy probably should have taken the sack on that play. That's what he can learn. You know what? I don't need to force the ball. Yes, I trust Deebo. Even if it was Ayuk, yes, I trust him. But you know what? In this situation, let's live to fight another day. We are in the red zone. We're close to it. And we're in scoring position. We don't want to lose that. So luckily, that was a good learning experience for him. But for those that were saying he narrowed it on Deebo, come on. let's slow down, let's watch some film, and let's get it right. Now, let's talk about one bad thing that the 49ers absolutely need to take care of. We talked about the right side, but how about the left side? Jalen Moore, are you kidding me? Three pressures. In fact, on Brock Purdy's 14 dropbacks, 9 pressures against Brock Purdy. They need Trent Williams back badly. That's what they need. Trent Williams, at the age of 36, is the best left tackle in the game, and honestly can step onto the field now and still be the best left tackle without any practice at all. And my fear is that if he comes onto the field, he's going to have to take a game or two to get on, even though he's still the best left tackle. But you really want to see how he works with Dominic Pooney, even though he's on the right side, because there's going to be a lot of pulls. How is he going to work with Jordan Mason? Jordan Mason is starting to run a little bit more, so he needs to understand where those players are going to go during certain cutbacks. So you want Trent Williams in sooner rather than later. So my take is John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, pay the man what he wants, get him in so you can get at least a good solid 2 weeks of practice with Trent Williams, so that way things are ready to go when you play the Jets, who potentially could have the number 1 defense in the NFL. And so you need to be at maximum power on that side. Figure out how are you going to protect Colton McKivitz against the Jets' amazing defensive line. You know who else looked great today? Was George Kittle. George Kittle had that amazing catch over the middle and honestly did great. He had 3 catches and just really showed out. If you were to break down the numbers, George Kittle had 3 catches for 34 yards with a 19-yard catch. He had Cameron Latu, 3 catches, 42 yards. Trent Taylor, 2 for 57. Really, that's a little bit of an omen because he caught the Hail Mary from Tanner Mordecai. And then you had Debo with the 2 catches for 32 with that deep 27-yard catch. But George Kittle just looked like George Kittle of old. He looked amazing. You had that pass right over the middle linebacker in front of the secondary. Just an amazing just to drop it right in that breadbasket. In fact, you have, of course, some 49er haters or Brock haters that were saying that was pure luck by Brock Purdy or he likes to take risks. The reality is, in fact, let's name some names. Ted Nguyen from the Atlantic. Let's talk about you, from The Athletic. First off, claims himself to be a film analyst for All Pro 22. Says it was just an irresponsible throw and wasn't good, and he just got lucky. The reality is, Ted, if you actually go back and watch the presser from both Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan, they both say this is something they practice every single day. In fact, they called out the defense during the presser saying, look, we prepare if they're running a Tampa 2 defense, our job is to get the ball over the middle linebacker's head in front of the secondary toward our tight end. That's what we do. In fact, you saw that multiple times against the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. That is one of their bread and butter plays. They know just where to drop it, and guess what? They have one of the best defenses to practice against in the 49ers defense. So Ted Nguyen from The Athletic, get it right. Stop just aiming for clickbait and give the guy some credit. If he was a first-round pick, you'd be saying, wow, this is the next Joe Montana. This is the next Tom Brady. No, instead, you have to go for clickbait and say that this was just a terrible throw and the linebacker simply brain farted and it wasn't a good process and none of that. Really, just come on. Let's start writing the right stuff. Get the clickbait to be based off actual good takes, not bad takes that you already know are bad, just so you can try to get the impressions that you want. The fact is, Brock Purdy played lights out. He played absolutely lights out, was hitting his targets, and of course he is. He has his stars back. Now, there are a couple of things where you're like, okay, Brock Purdy, you probably don't want to run around during the preseason and risk further injury. That's stuff he needs to learn. He needs to know that if he's the franchise quarterback, he needs to protect himself like he's a franchise quarterback. You're going to get paid, but you're not going to get paid if you get hurt. And so you need to understand that. And so Brock Purdy, we understand the O-line is not great, especially without Trent Williams. But don't feel like you need to do everything on your own. You have star power around you. Utilize that. And it's okay to live to fight another day in certain instances. Now, let's talk about Jordan Mason. What a stud. Jordan Mason, I think, is a phenomenal number 2 running back. In fact, would probably start for over half of the teams in the NFL. He's honestly just a faster Marshawn Lynch is what he is. He can go ahead and hit those holes. He can bounce to the outside, and he is just a strong, angry runner who knows how to, honestly, beat one-on-ones. And the one area that he was critiqued for was his pass blocking, and that seems to have gotten better during the offseason. We'll see what happens during the regular season, but I think Kyle's going to lean a lot on him, and I'm really excited to see what's to happen. All right, let's talk about some more bad. We talked a bit about Leonard Floyd, Yetur Gross-Matos. We talked about how terrible the O-line looked, but come on, 49ers. That special team's just atrocious. Just atrocious. How do you end up giving that punt return? We know that the special teams has been an Achilles heel for years and years and years. The fact is, it is still haunting the 49ers, and something needs to happen there. The special teams over and over and over again keeps falling short. And Kyle, this is something we got to get taken care of between week 1, because those games that go down to the wire where it's a one possession game, your special teams needs to show out, because it is a battle of field position. And if you can't win that battle, those close games are not going to go your way. So my challenge to the 49ers is spend a little extra time on special teams and a little less time trying to be cute. More time on special teams, because those things can change the game. You look at what happened during the Super Bowl, the muff punt. Those things can change the outcome of a game. So Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, do what you need to do to shore up the special teams. Maybe that means hiring another special teams coach. Maybe that's bringing over an advisor, finding what are the areas that you're missing. But going into the season, now that preseason's over, you've found the areas where you're still struggling, which is special teams. 2 out of 3 games during the preseason where special teams struggling. You saw the offensive line struggling. Get Trent Williams back. Figure out, how do we help Colton McKivitz, whether that's schematically or bringing in some extra help, or honestly trading for a right tackle. I understand that with Kyle Shanahan's tough system, it can be harder to just plug and play somebody, but find a way to upgrade that right-hand side, or schematically, or with another player. But there needs to be movement. But the good news of it is, hopefully the 49ers avoided some major scares with Leonard Floyd, Yetur Gross-Matos. Let's see how those MRIs go. But Debo seems to be doing great again. There seems to be trust between him and Purdy. You also have George Kittle, who seems to be back in form and hopefully healthy. Again, he had that muscle issue where he lost 30 pounds and then he was able to put most of it back. Hopefully he's back to 100%. But the big thing is the offensive line and special teams. The 49ers need to address that. But the good news is their draft seems to have hit really well this year, which they've needed to badly. But most of the players that were drafted really did a great job, and you start seeing flashes here and there. So hopefully that continues, and the 49ers can hit the ground running by taking care of the New York Jets week 1. Well, that's all we have for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.